Good afternoon, dear IAB members. Ms. Ayumit, Dr. Joe, Mr. Paul, Mr. Sim, Dr. Rene, Mr. Nigel, Dr. Arm, and of course, Dr. Panat. First of all, I would like to thank you that you have devoted your time since morning to join us for the opening ceremony and then also participate in many events today. Okay, and some of you, most of you are the speaker for us also. Okay, so I would like to say thank you on behalf of NIA. Today we have the 4th annual meeting of International Advisory Board. Okay, and after our meeting, then there will be the what we call meeting with the NIA board members that you have met the chairman already this morning, but he will join with other board member and also some the advisor of NIA also. They've joined roughly about 5 p.m. today. Okay, that's the schedule that I would like to tell you. And there's something that I have to give you an update today that Mr. Paul has something to do that he would like to resign from the board. Okay, we are so thank you for joining our IAB board. For this is the second term, right, for you?
Yes.
Yes, but you have. Very
I think my second term was automatic. I think it was originally a 2-year term, and I am now in my 4th year of a 2-year term. So, but thank you for having me for both of these terms, and I figure it's probably time that I don't overstay my welcome.
But thank you for your time very much that you have devoted for us. Okay, thank you so much. So, what is it's on the schedule that I would like the secretary to do the presentation of, on what we have on for the last meeting. Okay, sorry, the microphone is too loud. The last meeting that the minutes of last meeting and the action items that we have, and also what we have done yesterday on the key discussion point that we have the workshop with the NIA executive yesterday that we have already sent you via the email. Okay, we will discuss that also after your presentation. Please, the secretary would go through the last meeting minutes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the IAB yesterday that you joined and recommend us many points regarding the Thailand ecosystem in innovation and startup, and also about the NIA work as well. So this is the key point, discussion point that we can summarize from yesterday. I would like to recap it again before we gonna start the session today. The first point that you have mentioned a lot about is about developing entrepreneurial culture in the next generation, because many of you have mentioned that entrepreneurial is quite the key thing. It's not just about the innovation or the startup. It's about how to let them learn about to be entrepreneur, to think about transforming, to think about developing something new. The second point is about the international linkage to leverage domestic market mindset of Thai entrepreneur, because from the work that we have done recently, the majority of work is quite linked to the startup and also the innovation-driven enterprise that quite have stay in their safe zone domestic market. So the most important thing, you need to build up the entrepreneur that focus more not just only domestic market but need to go to the global market. So we can do this one through the international linkage. The third one is about growth and exit opportunity for the startup. Because when we support the startup, as you can see from yesterday's presentation, the majority of the funding at this stage is come from the government. And if you like the startup to growing and create the impact for the economy, you need to design, help them to identify the opportunity for growth and also for their exit as well. And the last point that we got from yesterday is about integration of work and effort to present the impact to the ecosystem. Because yesterday we have present many works that we NIA have done presently, but all that work actually is can link them together in order to see the big impact that we can create. So if we can integrating all this work together and make them link together, we can help or represent the big picture and show the impact that we can create to the Thailand ecosystem as well. So this is the 4 main points that we got from yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Something that I would like to add to this is what we heard this morning also, is the relationship and collaborations between existing firms and startups. Because one thing, for example, when we look at the European scene, many corporates want to start corporate venturing and incubation and so on, but becoming a venture client is, according to research at least, was claimed 5 times more effective than starting a corporate venturing and incubation. And I usually claim that innovation is never limited by supply. It's always limited by demand. So if you can get more on the demand wagon, you will prosper more. So focusing on the demand wagon is so important, and I would like that to be included in those conclusions.
Thank you very much. Yes, please, Mr. Major.
Can I argue the point? Culture. So when you've got a company that's established, I have the problem at the moment. So let me give you an example. So all my IT technology guys, got a big technology team, are based in Malta. And in Malta, the gambling industry came in. But my people didn't leave. Okay, and the reason they didn't leave because they thought the gambling would come and it would go. And they wanted to stay with a solid, big company. But I can't get them, because they have a different culture, to be a startup. So I've got some new ventures I need to do, and I need to do fast. So I've got these people, and that's their mentality. I need a new team that can be in the same company, but the CEO, 1, has to be aware, and 2, has to deal with it.
Comment that?
Teach me.
No, the one of the problems is that I see also in Europe is, for example, when we had this kind of meetings with the startups and corporates, the corporates sends their R&D people there. The tech people.
But the big corporate people, they don't work at weekends. They don't. A startup, they're early, they're late night, it's a different mindset.
Yeah, but you have to change, and you have to send the business developers and those that are responsible for the business future of the company, and turn them into more entrepreneurial people that are doing business with startups. That's tricky.
It is tricky, yeah. So I mean, in Europe, you had Blockbuster, which was a massive video store. They had a chance to buy Netflix. Okay, and actually they believed in Netflix, but the Blockbuster CEO loved the buzz on a Friday night. Everybody came, and he thought it would be forever. And he had to try to change the culture, and he was a good CEO, but he failed to change the culture. Kodak, I can give you a long list of companies like it. It's number 1, yeah. But I think you need to separate it, right? I do. So I think what happens is that big companies should invest in these, but they separate, so they need to understand how to do it. But a startup and entrepreneurial culture is a different. I might be a good CEO. Oh, hang on, going to criticise myself now. I might be a good CEO as entrepreneurial. I might even do the middle section. Okay, but when he gets too corporate, probably needs someone else, not me. I think that there are stages, and so therefore recognising that, encouraging this entrepreneurial, but the older companies doing it, whoa.
Thank you.
Stimulating demand and competition, agreed.
Thank you very much for your input. Okay, would like to sum up with your
elaborate
Yes.
on this. I think now we are not talking about the two sides of the prongs, young entrepreneurs versus corporate. Now we're talking about investor, talking about some kind of, it's not intermediary agent, but a guys or ladies that mitigate risk and also work as mediators. So in that sense, you have a set of enterprises, right? Young firms and corporates. While another axis is we're talking about serial investors and also mediator that's working on growth hack. So there are different cultures, but they need to be in line or meet in the intersection. Now the world has changed because in the overall linear model of innovation, we mainly discuss about researchers, universities, entrepreneurs or big firms, and what about the real money come from?
Okay, that's my business. I mean, that's what I do. So you have funds, lots of funds, and quite interestingly, as you said, you know, you've got a big opportunity with small companies, and the best investment or best venture capital funds, they'll invest in, let's say, 50, and then they'll spot 10 winners, and then they load heavily on the 10 winners, and that's a proven investment philosophy. So in order to be able to promote a venture capital fund, so I've got offices all around the world, we advise high net worth individuals, they actually want those opportunities, they want to invest in those opportunities. So it's allowing top fund managers the access, the information, and then they obviously would be prepared. Some Thai rules are restrictive on ownership, so that causes a problem. Some Thai rules on, so in the SEC in Thailand, regulate you on advising on Thai products only. So you can only buy a Thai product, or you can only advise on a Thai product. Whereas Switzerland, Mauritius, lots of the bigger jurisdictions, you can advise on international. So you have to go both ways. You have to allow the Thai investors to invest internationally, and you could say that's dangerous. And then you have the reverse happening. So there's 100%. There's money available. You need to present it in the right way. We're back to image, culture, present it, and there's actually lots of this money available. So it just needs presented in the right way, and happy to advise on it because we deal with those types of people all day. And they're looking for 50, literally, to spot 10 that have got legs. And then they load on the 10 that have got legs. That's how they all do it. And proven statistically to have worked historically. Doesn't mean it does in the future, but that's how it's worked. I'm not picking on your point, but
Okay, thank you. So,
เดี๋ยวไปเรื่องที่พรีเซนเตอร์เลยนะคะ
okay. So now I would like to start with the presentation from each of the members that is your homework from our last meeting. Okay, so I would like to start with Dr. Rene. Okay. So I have around 8 to 10 minutes, okay, each
I'm going to move.
to do the presentation.
All right, thanks very much. I think this needs to get a bit closer. Is that okay? All right, so if I understood correctly the homework, then the idea was that we said, well, we can probably also bring initiatives to the table where we can leverage on our own ecosystems back home, bring new initiatives to the table, which at the same time are potentially some method innovation, also leverage on the ecosystems which we have around us from where we come from. So one of those initiatives which came to my mind,
Maybe you turn.
oh, it's actually,
Oh, no, you open.
okay, this was good? This is okay, yeah. Was what we call the future of well-being and nutrition. So we are here certainly in an environment in Thailand where we can consider Thailand to be a lead market in everything related to food, starting from the agriculture to transformation of food, selling of food. The biggest food companies around the world are also located here, particularly in different niches. So that's something which is very interesting. We also face a global challenge around food and nutrition. We have to give food to 8 billion people. That is also increasingly people which, with a growing middle class, have more sophisticated demand about their nutrition. Another global challenge is also related to what we call here well-being, which we can also call health-related issues. 50% of all health-related issues are related to nutrition and bad nutrition, malnutrition. So in this background, the question is what can we do potentially together here, and what could be an initiative. So what we at the EDHEC Business School have been doing for some years is to say when there's change ahead, which we see in the food industry, and particularly by new demands on more transparency in value chains, also more control of what happens in value chains through a new regulation concerning the CO2 footprint of nutrition being produced, also health risk associated with nutrition, etc. This type of change needs to be understood first. It needs then, if there's a transformation happening, it also means that the concerned actors in the value chain need also to understand how they might need to adopt new rules, new ways of working together, how they might also see their own value chain evolve. So that's what we call fresh thinking, which is needed. I think the third thing which is needed is to have an understanding of how a future value chain might look like, which might include a lot of intermediate actors between the agro-food industry and the more personalized nutrition, potentially also connections to the healthcare system, also to health and insurance providers, etc. So what we do in projects like this is three things, what you see in these objectives there. First, we say, well, we need to have a common language, a common future outlook. What we do for that is we create trend radars, we build scenarios, we map startups, and we create what we call theories of change. So what is behind that term is an understanding of how transformation happens in an industry. For instance, one theory of change in the nutrition and well-being industry, if we want to call it that, is the active consumer. The consumer which comes with their mobile phone into retail and have a much more active stance towards what they can consume, what works well with their dietary constraints, but also with maybe the lifestyle they have, etc. And that change is driven from a classical blind spot for the agro-food industry, because they are often the producers quite far from the customer. Well, the customer goes into retail, goes into restaurants, but for the agri-food industry as such, this is potentially hidden. While today this is also in the digital space, so this is actually something we can harvest for information. So that's what can create what I call here an actionable forward view. Now the second element is what I call develop talents and nurture entrepreneurship. Now we all come from environments where a lot of entrepreneurship is happening. I also liked very much Kjell's point, which is something I have seen in my professional life also, that when you're an entrepreneur, the biggest problem is that you need to have your first customers with which you can scale, and big companies can be those customers. And that should not be limited to a given country, which is, however, typically the case, because you're coming from one cultural background as an entrepreneur, you are located somewhere, and it's difficult for you to scale on the global market, particularly in the food industry, which is also heavily regulated, so you need to get approval for, let's say, the food ingredients which you produce or the other things you do. So I think the opportunity we would have here is that in Thailand, the entrepreneurial ecosystem about food is already well organized. The NIA has its own initiative with Space F. We have also big companies, which here really helps in the sense that they also organize their own incubation. It's rather concentrated, the industry, which means we only need to bring a few big players on board, and that would allow us to control a lot of what is going on in the entrepreneurship space. That also would allow then for effective formats of bringing big corporates, small companies together around specific topics, etc. So this is another opportunity I see here. What we have also experimented with very successfully is this type of hackathon approaches, where there is sometimes this reverse pitching, which is also going on here today, that big corporates are saying this is actually what I'm looking for, and then startups can see whether they can be part of the solution which is sought. It can also be around more societal challenges which one wants to face, and where we can then bring together corporate innovators, startups, and what we also do is we bring also our business students into the game to help us imagine new business models. Sort of the second element. What I would also feel particularly interesting is to bring very different cultures together. Now I'm, as a French business school, also representing a country which is very famous for its food culture for many years. It's also a lot of very innovative companies, particularly companies like Danone and other companies in the dairy industry, which have for many years pioneered functional food, food with health function claims, etc. And I think these companies can profit very much on being merged across these typical divide, because the food sector, because it's nationally regulated, typically also stays very national, and that's where they have their strongest ties. So in my mind, from a European perspective, France is a bit of a focus point, and I think here Thailand can play also for Southeast Asia, if not of all of Asia, a similar role as being a lead market for the food sector. So this is sort of the third thing which I would feel we could bring together. Maybe it's around 10 to 15 large corporates which one can unite around a program like this. These companies can provide the challenges for the hackathon. They can also guide a research program for looking deeper into what are the changes which are ahead and what to do about it. We can bring them together in events like the event we're attending here, but it can also be leaner formats like webinars around specific topics. So broadly speaking, this is what I wanted to present as an umbrella program to work together. It's something which we start anyway on the European side right now, and we're putting it together. But having spent now the last two days here, I'm even more convinced that this is a very good opportunity, which would be sad to miss, to bring these vibrant ecosystems on innovation together from these different parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and the project is very attractive. I think that we can implement this project later. Yeah, Dr. Pranat, please.
To give you more information regarding to food tech and how we work with corporates through SpaceF, this year we just got our new corporate partner. It's gonna open their collaborative details this Saturday. We got Lotte from Korea. Lotte now already joined SpaceF as a key partner. In that sense, we will have the Korean chaebol to join. So in that sense, I think in terms of this year, it's a Franco-Thai innovation year. So it should make the food tech and also the collaboration with EdTech and SpaceF as a point of departure in France, mainly through the big corporation in French so-called food industries. Then we can attract more deep technology food startup, not only from France but also from EU, to join our SpaceF, because it's not purely the self so-called support endeavor, but our corporate will compensate some cost flying from their own countries to Bangkok, and after that our corporate partner will subsidize it, and after that they will have a lot of chance to receive another round of funding from not only Thai BEV, Thai Union, but also Lotte.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Okay. Now I would like to move next. This is the presentation from, okay. Like Mr. Sim, yeah, your presentation, please.
Thank you. I'm getting more and more slide averse these days, so I really like to talk more than just slides recently. And honestly, I think sort of it as a change also in my thinking. But, well, first of all, when I was first kindly asked to join the board here, right? I guess the attempt was really to try to bring about a thinking to say, okay, how can innovation towards government possibly be a thing to explore, right? And to be honest, I think on that front, we still probably will do work with your teams in NIA to basically explore and map that out a bit more, right? I think based on from Estonia's experience, I can sort of see different ways, how, for example, how to systematically induce startups to meet government more. But that's exactly something where, with NIA and DGA and possibly myself, so thinking along a bit, we'll do some more work in the next months to come in a way. Even just 2 days ago, I was happy to contribute to a bit of liaisoning between NIA and DGA on that. The initiative I want to bring forward is actually a very concrete one, and I'm not going to take all of the time you allocated me. And it really plays to the challenge and the opportunity we briefly already talked about yesterday, but even more today when I had the pleasure of joining the startup discussion, really. And the challenge that I threw at the table here, and not just in Thailand, but especially here, is to say, look, let's go global, as opposed to start, staying stuck in our domestic markets. And secondly, the opportunity being that what I greatly see is that the way to go global is to connect the bridgeheads in the sense of, let's say, up and coming or let's say strong sort of startup ecosystems like that. Very concretely what I have in mind, and that's the core of it, is to say that some of you might already know, I know that Paul knows, Estonia does have an e-residency program, which literally means that you don't even have to leave the country here to basically set up a digital shop through Estonia and be legit in the whole of European market. Going back to the challenge, if Thai companies, startups in your clientele, startups in your sort of network here, actually, if you want to induce them to try Europe out, that sort of program can be the bridgehead to make it happen. And I think clearly from Estonian government side, so basically that's my sort of previous background, and that's the sort of ecosystem touch I can help to bring on board. There might be sort of interest to explore this, to say have a specialized e-residency offering to Thai startups in your networks and groups to actually set up and start exploring business in Europe through that in a way. So this is my very concrete pitch of saying I see that there's a concrete value proposition that can be developed on that, really to induce and raise European Union to the table as a target market more, and induce that sort of exploration, breaking beyond the regional region here.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add to? Yeah, very clear. Yes, of course. So the next person, I would like Mr. Nijo.
Thank you very much. I think a few points in there. First of all, culture. Where's the attention? The attention these days is on social media. If you don't control the narrative, somebody else is going to control the narrative. So if you want to create more entrepreneurship, then you need to be able to use influencers. Alex Alban comes to mind because we have a little British there and a little Thai there, where there's people that are super successful that can actually influence the generations coming through that are likely to be the entrepreneurs. Reality is the older people, unfortunately, don't change. I'll give myself as an exception, but it's rare. In general, it's the younger people. How are you going to influence them? How are you going to change the culture? Well, the way to do that, in my opinion, is where's the attention? So if we know where the attention is, then we can actually apply ourselves, and we can use people that would support Thailand in order to help them develop that mindset. I use a sportsman because I think that entrepreneurship, sports, they're linked in many different ways. You actually look at the extra training, the things you have to do, the extra effort, the practice. I think there's those types of people that are there, and they're seen by the generation that you want to influence as stars, and those people can contribute to the future of this country and actually help people globally. Next, I feel that once you have that, then you always have to look at friction. So whether it's technology or anything else, how much friction are you causing? Can you reduce it? What Estonia has done is they've reduced the friction. I think it's just a constant question for everybody, including me. What stops us? What stops us working? What stops us being successful? And if you can just ask that question of yourself, you'll realize there are some things that cause friction. And if you can reduce that, sometimes difficult, that of course makes a massive difference. I come to implementation. I don't know the current number, but I think there's about 10 million apps. So there's lots of ideas. So we can create entrepreneurship, we can reduce the friction. It's actually teaching people and having the right thought leaders, I think is the right training that can help people implement. Okay, and I'll use your process, but it's about implementation. It's actually showing people how. That's I would say it's the key factor. Implement. Can you actually implement? Lots of people have got an idea, and they think once they've got an idea, that's it. Okay, they'll come and they want money and everything else. But an idea is not worth any money. Can you implement? Can you actually use it? And it's those people that need supporting, but it's also people need training on how to implement. My fourth I mentioned yesterday was spot the wins. I mentioned it when we talked about fund management, but once you spot a win, you have to put the light on it. And we talk about culture. Find the wins, and then put a big spotlight on the wins, because that will influence other people, which then leads to the culture changing, because the spotlight will be on people that have been successful. It will encourage the ones that have been successful. So putting the spotlight on winners makes more people want to attempt the same, and also makes the winners want to win more.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now, I would like to move to Ms. Ayumi, please.
Thank you. You'd like to use the PowerPoint?
You have the presentation, right?
Yes.
And the PowerPoint presentation from Ms. Ayumi.
Yes. Yes.
One moment, please.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Yeah, so, yeah,
Sorry.
I would like to share some multilateral initiative from my current work at OECD and also the bilateral initiative from my home country, Japan. Ah, it's not, it's, okay, okay, better, okay. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, Dr. Ren. Okay. Yeah, so as part of EU OECD project on transforming economies, we are currently collaborating with the 4 Asian countries, Thailand, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. So I already shared this project with the Southeast Asia Assembly this afternoon, but I want to focus more on Thailand findings. Going back, sorry. Yeah, so you already are familiar with this, so quickly. So in 2010, global venture capital totaled 44 billion, but now it's tenfold. Oh, it's gone now?
Just waiting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so nearly 10 times fold, and it's equivalent to GDP of country like Singapore or Denmark, and representing almost 0.5% of the world GDP. Okay, and as the broader Asian landscape, China and India dominate, absorbing 57% China and 19% India. Percent of Asia's venture capital, respectively. And Singapore is, with its long history of supporting startups, serves as a regional hub and accounting for 6% of regional investment. However, now Thailand is coming up as a startup hub in Asia. And the growth and dynamism of startup scene in Thailand is a testament to the potential of this region. Is sorry. Yes, startup ecosystem also exhibit different specialties depending on the region. And Thailand shares a similarity with some other Southeast Asian countries in that they specialize in solutions tailored for their young and burgeoning markets. In Thailand, while still being a relatively small hub, sees its investment highly concentrated. The landscape here is less diversified than other Asian average, with various business services, e-commerce, and fintechs claiming the lion's share of funding at 81%. The high concentration is driven by Thailand's handful of unicorns. This differentiation in specialization highlights the diverse opportunities that exist across different startup ecosystems and underscores the importance of tailored support and policy intervention. And OECD, since 2013, we have developed a framework to review policies for startups in each country. And this started from Latin America and then expanded to other regions like Egypt and Shenzhen, China. And currently, we are working to customize this framework for Thailand. And NIA team and Dr. Pak has been supporting our study on fulfilling in this chart, and we are going to launch the report in coming months. But let me share the 3 potential future developments for Thailand's startup scene based on our ongoing work. First is the question of regional expansion. Currently, 85% of Thai startups are concentrated in Bangkok area. As such, there is a vital need to enable regional development to extend innovation and employment opportunities beyond the capital. This also facilitates better integration and linkage with the broader regional ecosystem, aligning perfectly with the goals of the NIA that currently they are going to do. The second is harnessing all available talent. Our data shows that around 10.4% of all startups in Thailand have at least one female founder. So while this number is consistent with the global average, with about like 70% in the US, but still there remains untapped potential. So ensuring that the full breadth of talent is given, the opportunity to thrive is key to the continued growth of the startup ecosystem. So in OECD, we normally put the gender lens into all the reports, and we did that study for Thailand, and we think that Thailand can utilize the untapped talent of female entrepreneurs. That's the message here. And the third one is the scaling opportunities for seed stage firms. In Thailand, about 48% of all deals occur at the seed stage. While this is higher than in China, it falls short of figures seen in other parts of Southeast Asia, particularly Singapore. So that's the third message. This report will be launched in September in the Global Entrepreneurship Congress in Melbourne, Australia. So I hope that you will be receiving this, yes, in September. Yes. In the slide, I think you can watch it, but later OECD has other projects related to startups and SMEs and financing instruments for ASEAN and OECD also. And OECD has a platform on financing SMEs for sustainability, and non-OECD members are also welcome to participate. So I'm sure that Thailand will be very welcome to join our forces. I think it's time already, but can I? Okay, let me turn to the bilateral initiative that my former organization, I work for JICA for 20 years, and JICA is putting more emphasis on its support to startups, especially impact investment. So, because the startups are playing crucial role in achieving the SDGs, and JICA is focusing more on supporting startups that amplify social impact. To that end, JICA recently conducted a survey to identify the challenges and to identify Japan's direction. So, yes, as the role of business in that the chart shows, there is a growing impact investment globally, but demands to fulfill the SDGs goal by 2030, there is a financial gap of 2.6 trillion US dollars. So by the international communities are now encouraged to fill the gap. And as shown in the figure previously, impact investment has taken place mainly in Europe and North America, but recently, companies in South and Southeast Asia, especially startups, are playing a more critical role in the future economies of their countries. So reflecting these, interest and expectations in impact investment have rapidly shifted towards South and Southeast Asia. So in the effort to fill the gap of the 2.6 billion US dollars, there are many, public and private players in impact investment. So like World Bank, ADB, and USAID and Germany's bilateral donor agencies are more investing on this field. And in South and Southeast Asia, there are cases that where governments and international aid agencies together establish impact investment ecosystem. For example, ADB has established an impact investment fund under a grant scheme for investing in tech-related startups in order to promote impact investment in South and Southeast Asia. And in Japan studied where are the gaps in South and Southeast Asia, and we found that there are more finance gap in early and seed stage startups. So, and Japanese private sectors are more looking into JICA to play more role on filling the gap. That's why JICA launched the Project Ninja. It's a next innovation with Japan to support the entrepreneurs and to startups in South and Southeast Asia. So I don't go into the detail, but I wanted to say that due to all the international communities are now looking into the achieving SDGs by 2030, and there is a financial gap, and more donors through their official development assistance, they are trying to support startups through startups that are trying to solve both social problems and that do their business. So I think Thailand has more chance to collaborate with bilateral donors, multilateral donors in that aspect. And I have some concrete ideas. So in the later stage, I would love to continue discussing on the concrete ones. Thank you.
Thank you for your first presentation. You input more after we have the open discussion. Okay, so and now we would like to have Dr. Joe, please, for your presentation. Do you have a PowerPoint too? Yeah, right?
Yes, I'm old-timer, so I have this presentation helping me out. Okay, I interpret this. Do you have a clicker here? Yeah, and that's forward, hopefully. Yeah. That's the way, yeah. I interpret our task to really look at international collaboration, which support NIA's role in strengthening Thailand's innovation ecosystem. I just brainstormed some things that might be of interest. The first one is based on our last meeting, when you were talking about collaboration with Israel and Japan, it came to mind that it was really very similar to what we are doing in Eureka Eurostars. So initiate some sort of similar Eureka Eurostars program for R&D collaboration would be one way of improving the international collaboration. And if you look at Eureka Eurostars in a nutshell, it's a program within Eureka that really looks at the early stage R&D project working towards remarkable innovation. And it supports the first 3 years of development, and it's completely technology open. All technologies are there. The maximum duration is 36 months, and the market launch should be take no later than 2 years after the end of the project. So it's basically an R&D project, and you can see some numbers. It has been quite successful in Europe, and it was also praised by the evaluation agency we have for overlooking government initiatives that Eurostars was a good program. The evaluation criteria you see there, it's quality and efficiency of implementation, economic, societal and environmental impact, and R&D excellence that they are looking to. And it's a collaboration where one party cannot have, I think there's a limit. If you have 70% or more of the budget, then it's not part, so it has to be a joint kind of effort. The business benefits of doing this is that companies experience an average of 15% annual turnover increase, 69% of the companies enter new markets, and 68% achieve improved market shares. R&D relationships are usually transferred into business relationship, and there's an increased visibility within organizations into their specialty fields, which attracts other kind of resources, from talent to money. The proposed actions would be to design and establish a TIE-STARS program inspired by Eurostars. You could join and collaborate with selected Eurostar members, because I think you can access not being a member if you collaborate with a member state and use that as a stepping point into the Eurostars to get experience of it. And you can, if you find this interesting, you can apply for Eureka membership and join the Eureka community. But it should be perhaps a stepwise way. The second one is really to join an international startup ecosystem community. For example, Startup Genomes. We have been working quite a lot with Startup Genome. In a nutshell, it's a data-driven, but it includes quantitative and qualitative components. It looks at regional startup ecosystem. It gives you a link into international comparison and ranking. I looked at the startup link. It's really driven only by data, and usually in many cases, if you are not very well, your appearance is in Crunchbase and other, you come out low. We did a comparison just looking at international databases, and it didn't really, Sweden didn't come out well there. And you get a membership in a global community of startup and innovation ecosystem developers. I just put it in the approach in a nutshell. One of the interesting things that they have is that you look at ecosystem always evolving in maturity phases. So there's a life cycle. You cannot apply the same kind of policy actions to everybody. So no size fits all. You have to understand where you are in the maturity model, and then apply policy actions based on where you are in the maturity phase. And then they have a success factor model, so that you apply that as a filter on the maturity phase you are in. You do some peer benchmarking, you prioritize, and then you get policy recommendations. We have been running this full process on 3 regions in Sweden, and we have done a light versions on the rest of the 21 regions in Sweden, in order to know what kind of policy actions we should apply. The strategic benefits is that you get both the quantitative and qualitative, and it's an interactive kind of way. It's not that somebody else is, like I found the startup link, somebody is looking at data and then gives you an ranking. This is an interactive kind of way where you are engaged in the assessment. And it gives you guidance on how to evolve the ecosystem to different phases of maturity, and the phases then, as I said, guide you through to the relevant with the relevant interventions. And you get a peer learning and access to international expert and experiences in developing ecosystem. And proposed action would be visit one of the community events, for example, arranged by Startup Genome. The one that is ahead is the Startup Genome Ecosystem Leadership Forum in Melbourne this fall. Make some pilot assessments to try out the approach and get the first experience, and join the Global Innovation Forum that they have to start applying the data-driven assessment and get peer learning experience. Lastly, as everybody is, okay, we are on the not the first to propose some opportunities within in the food tech area. We are also looking with Israel, so the Thailand, Israel, Sweden might be an interesting kind of triangle for food tech innovations. The idea is, in a nutshell, is that Thailand is strong in food and agriculture sector with impressive capabilities and capacities for food innovation. Sweden has a long tradition and capability in innovation and has strategic interest in improving and increasing innovation performance in the food system. And the combination would be complementary and attractive. And the proposed actions would really to find areas of collaboration, R&D, commercialization / incubation, and also in startup corporate collaboration. And suggested contact points is we have a specific incubator in the south of Sweden, Krinova, which is focused on food tech, food innovation, because that's a strong area in Skåne in southern Sweden. We have the Swedish food arena. I would go back and see. You see there, it's difficult to read, but there it's an association of I think more than 60 food companies in the whole value chain, and they have together these 5. Even I cannot read this. Their mission or orientation, directionality, which I think would fit probably well with what you are doing in Thailand. So that's the Swedish food arena. We have Vinnova has been funding a lot Ignite, which is a matchmaking service to create business collaboration between startups and corporates, which has been quite successful. It has been used in Sweden and in many abroad markets also. And one of our strategic areas is a sustainable food system, and I talked to them coming here to Thailand that they seem to be interested in seeing and exploring opportunities with Thailand. That's all.
Thank you very much. Very, very good proposal. I would like Dr. Ram, please, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm going to talk about is actually an extension of the point that I mentioned yesterday. So the topic is rethinking innovation diplomacy. And I think there's a couple of contexts that I would like us to keep in mind. The first one is the big geopolitical shift and the rising tension also with between the US and China, and also the tension in Taiwan. And with all of these geopolitical changes, there's a lot of interest for talents around the world to come to Southeast Asia, and especially to come to Thailand. So I think it's a golden opportunity to attract talent from Taiwan, from China, or even Chinese, Taiwanese who study in the US to come to Thailand and use Thailand and Southeast Asia as a hub for innovation and as a hub for startup ecosystem. But to do that, I think that when we talk about startup in Thailand or we talk about innovation, we have to look beyond the domestic vision or the domestic mindset. What I have seen from the exhibition and from the many amazing ideas that Thai talents have. But one of the problems for these amazing ideas is that they focus on the domestic market or to target domestic audience. but I think that we need to rethink and scale up, to think in terms of mainland Southeast Asia, to think in terms of Asia, or even to think in terms of the global market, right? And there is I think when we talk about startup or even innovation, we have to start with the market. What's the market that we want to target, right? If you think about domestic market, that's one way of thinking. But if you think about mainland Southeast Asia, for example, if we talk about Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, think of Thailand as a bridging place between these emerging markets, then there's a lot of great opportunities for the emergence of new consumers, of new middle classes. And many of the startup ideas and many of the techs, especially in the realm of artificial intelligence or big data, the scaling is very important. If you only scale in a country with 70 million population, that's one thing, right? But if you can scale up to a wider market, to a wider audience, the ASEAN population is 600 million, but even mainland Southeast Asia is big enough. So I think that we need to revise our scope, our vision, and how do we think about market, and we have to think beyond domestic. Now, to do that, let me propose a couple of concrete ways, right? Concrete initiatives for the NIA, right? And yesterday, when I heard the presentations from the NIA administrative members, I was really impressed that the organization with only 100 people have achieved tremendous results in the past, especially during Director Panat tenure in the past 8 years. And I'm in the education sector, so I teach at Juฬa, and a lot of the projects that was presented yesterday at the NIA, I have heard of it before, right? So it was widely known and widely circulated in Thailand. But a lot of these projects can add the international dimension. Last week, one of the colleagues in the Startup Association told me that there's a competition, a big competition on startups in China. And they not only invited Chinese talent, but they invited talent from all around the region. So even Thai talent can participate in the Chinese competition. And if they win, they can cooperate, coordinate with the Chinese, and then they get funds from the Chinese government and from the Chinese funding agencies. And I think similar things can be done with all the amazing things that NIA have done, right? At least, two dimensions. One is on the competition front. We can think of ways to attract talent from mainland Southeast Asia, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, because Thailand would be a very attractive place for them to compete and then to propose new initiatives, new projects. And then they also understand their own market, right? They understand the pain points of their market. So how do we use, or how do we envision Thailand as a platform, right? To not just groom Thai talent, but to groom regional talent. And when we think of regional, I think mainland Southeast Asia have a lot of potential, because for people in Myanmar, in Laos, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, right? I think Thailand is very attractive to them as a place, as a platform to develop their own idea and their businesses. And the benefit of doing this is for the Thai talent to interact with international talent, with regional talent, and then to work together to form ideas that look beyond the scope of Thai domestic market, but look to the regional market, mainland Southeast Asia and ASEAN, and then the global market. So one of that is on the competition front, right? But another thing is also on the training academies that the NIA have organized. And yesterday I mentioned that, for example, at the Ministry of Commerce, the Department of Foreign Trade, they run a program that not only have the Thai entrepreneurs, but bringing Vietnamese entrepreneurs, Lao entrepreneurs, Cambodian entrepreneurs together into the program. And then they have a chance to learn from one another, to collaborate, to build projects. And then people in this program, they don't only think about Thai market, right? They think about the overall regional market, mainland Southeast Asian market. And I think similar things can also be done with the many impressive training programs that NIA have run. So I think the idea that I propose is how to integrate and bridge the strong foundation of innovation diplomacy that the organization have accomplished with this board, but also with the many networks, and then how to incorporate that to the many concrete projects that you have done regularly, right? And I think for that we have to understand the changing context of geopolitics, the very golden opportunity to attract of these amazing talents from China, from Taiwan, or even Asian students in the US, and also talent in the region, right? And I think if we position ourselves correctly and have all these concrete initiatives that gear towards attracting wider regional, broader talent, I think it would benefit a lot of the ecosystem, innovation ecosystem of Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dr. Panat, please.
Sorry, I just grabbed some keywords, but I think it's very good idea, and we have been done in 3 specific arena regarding to this. We work closely with Mekong sub-region, Mekong Institute. Couple of years ago, before COVID-19, we support Laos PDR on governmental agencies, human capital development through the program that we work with TICA, but mainly we pay by ourselves. So quite a few number of government officers from Laos already been passed through our programs and also with our project in Laos. Later we expand our horizon to some other countries. Like in Kazakhstan, they would like to have someone to learn from banking sector in Thailand, because they have a lot of fund. But they would like to expand their funding not only in Singapore but also in Bangkok. So in that sense, we work closely with Bitelec, which is the government fund, but through the human capital development as well. So in that sense, it's mainly in the level of bilateral. And I think in the near future, at this moment, we are working with APEC. We receive funding that we joint develop a project with Chinese government. In that sense, we are going to have some not even but human resource exchange between Southeast Asian countries and China in APEC. So this kind of project based, we can extend it and work closely with Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At this moment, we have EMOU with Ministry of Foreign Affairs regarding to so-called innovation diplomacy. While we also have a program that we would like the international startup to land and enjoy our services, so-called global innovation hub or global startup hub. That's already a very good package. That includes smart visa that we work closely with BOI, and after that we bring them into the ecosystem so that we can make sure that within 12 months of the first 12 months they could establish the company, because we would like to have international co-founder in Thailand, in Bangkok, or in Chiang Mai, or maybe in the near future in Phuket. The last one, we mainly working through so-called sovereign and family fund that they would like to land. So in that sense, it's not purely talent development, but we would like to have more so-called individual angel investor and also investor that come through the channel that we can be the mediators among local fund and also international fund. So in that sense, I think it's not purely similar to Ministry of Commerce, but we can specify the talent and also the way we engaging with our neighboring countries and also with promising innovator that they would like to move and live in Thailand.
Thank you, Dr. Pranad. So now, Mr. Lee, you have anything that you want to comment? You're on Zoom. I know that you are sick, but if you can say something, that would be nice. Thank you. Mr. Lee. Now it's time for an open discussion now. We have about 10 minutes that you can share your idea from amongst members that are already present, okay? And then after the 10 minutes, we will have a break before we let the board member of NIA to join, okay? Okay. So, yes, please, Mr. Newman.
Thank you. I think I would like to follow up about the innovation diplomacy, or the concrete idea that, about, because I'm from official development assistance field, and unfortunately Thailand is graduating from ODA almost, right? Because you are already middle income, but like Japanese ODA still have some program for Thailand, and one is the third country training program. Have you heard of it? JICA and TAICA, together with one of the line ministries or agencies, we can make like a seminar like for like 2 weeks or 1 month to invite neighboring countries to Thailand and have seminars or trainings, or it can be seminars or mutual learning, period. I mean, the trainings or seminar. I was still also in the Southeast Asia Startups Assembly, and they just raised the voice that the mutual learning within the region is very important for Thai and entrepreneurs, and also so. For me, it would be a great idea for Japan and Thai cooperation using the tiny budget of official development assistance. But I don't have any responsibility, but I'm meeting head of JICA Thailand office tomorrow, so maybe I will, as an idea, I want to propose to that.
Thank you.
That would be easy, because in the past we joined hand with UNSCAP. UNSCAP will pay for travel and accommodation for least developed countries to join our programs, and we run the show here.
Because in my presentation, Japan or JICA is now increasingly wants to support the startups in this region. So I think that will be match their needs and your needs.
Laura, please, you mentioned that to JICA. Please, Mr. Sim, please.
Thank you. I wanted to just briefly build on Renee's idea in a way, and perhaps offer like a comment. Somewhere in my childhood, I've also been involved in foresight work at some point, and what we started doing at some point, I think was very valuable to, I guess, connect to really what NIA is about, is to say that we started experimenting to say that every foresight project also has to end with a concrete business exploration part in a way. And so this might just 5 cents to your idea, saying, hey, I think I would also see that, is there, besides, just to say understanding and more let's say probing of the future, right? Is there actually some concrete probing of some concrete ideas from the future ideas that you could then have as a metric, as a target? Try out 3 completely new things even, right? Get a bit of that exploration going, right? I think that would really link the foresight exercise to concrete business innovation attempt in a way. But cool stuff.
Thank you. Dr. Joe, do you want to add anything?
Confirm what was just said, that linking this, using foresights to really do business experimentation, once again emphasizing the process rather than relying on prediction of futures. Create your future and act upon and use continuously, foresights and whatever to really guide the probing, but make experiments and draw learnings from that and have this kind of iterative process. And I think, as Professor René was pointing out, food seems to be a very attractive kind of area to really look into, because integrating life sciences and this kind of human well-being with the nutrition is really something that you should exploit.
Very much. Mr. Niger, anything that you want to add? Thank you. Mr. Paul, anything that you want to say? Please.
No, I mean, it's been a very comprehensive discussion, and it's great to see, an expanded board with very diverse perspectives, adding to the conversation. So it's almost a shame to be stepping down now when things are getting really interesting.
So I think that we will have a 10-minute break. So let the secretary prepare for the conclusion, and then we will invite board and the advisor to join us. Okay? So you have a coffee break for 10 minutes.
Actually,
okay.
sorry, I have one more question before we go.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Kun Ayumi have mentioned about the JICA case about the impact investment. I would like to let Kun Paul to recommendation something about impact investment opportunity in the Southeast Asia, and because I think this one is the area of expertise of Kun Paul. Could you please recommend anything?
Mr. Paul, please.
Suggestion? Yep.
So impact is a very specific term in the VC space, which is not exactly what I do. I would say a lot of the work that I do around sustainability, ESG, and climate is impact-ish. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the VC space and the asset management space, impact investing implies that social metrics and impact metrics take precedent over financial metrics. And so that's a particular type of investing relative to what's known as socially responsible investment, which is still largely financially driven, but you're overlaying secondary metrics that involve impact. So it's really just, it's a sliding scale of how important financial metrics are versus impact metrics. Socially responsible still finance first, and impact is impact driven. But that said, there's certainly a growing area of interest around terms like ESG, sustainability, climate, which I will be speaking on tomorrow. I think when I moved into ESG 3-4 years ago, after having come out of fintech, I know that a lot of people in this ecosystem didn't understand why, simply because I was operating probably the most active fintech fund in Thailand, and definitely one of the most active corporate fintech funds. And so I left at the peak to go into a field that very few people understood. They thought I was quite crazy, and I told them that in a few years, everyone's going to be talking about ESG, risk management, and sustainability. And then I had the very good fortune of living in a world where we went through a global pandemic, supply chain issues, a global trade war, and the threat of nuclear conflict in Ukraine, which basically shone an incredible spotlight on risk management and ESG and all the risks. So, I almost felt like an arms dealer where, you hope for a really good war to boost your business. So nothing like a perfect storm of incredible global risks to shine a spotlight on ESG. And we're now seeing a lot of folks across the region, but especially Thailand. I know that a number of funds, I think K-Bank just announced that they were going to be doing an ESG fund. 500 startups announced an impact fund in the last year. I think Krungsee has launched a green bond funding project, or a green bond department. So we're seeing a lot of interest in this space now. And I think we're only just getting into areas like climate. Of all the different ESG risks, I think climate has definitely been climbing up the scale. And despite the VC funding winter that we've seen globally, a lot of money continues to pour into the climate space. And, you know, it's a very broad, little understood sector that I think a lot of people are struggling with. The fact that we had a crypto crash last year meant that we have a lot of what I call crypto refugees flooding into the climate space, or generative AI. Those seem to be the hot sectors now. So with a lot of money and talent and interest, it's very important that we boost understanding. I think it's important that organizations like the NIA get ahead of that, so that with all the flood of interest and money, that the NIA can play a very critical role in how to, how to leverage that momentum, so that it's not just a lot of energy, just a lot of energy and interest that's wasted, just spinning wheels. And how do you direct that to the areas of greatest need? And so I think if we want to talk about generally impact, we definitely do need to get closer to, I think, the social entrepreneurship ecosystem. But I think having impact versus investing in impact, I think having impact means not just engaging with the social enterprise scene, but engaging in areas like climate and ESG. I think around gender, I think Ayumi made some great points, on the representation of gender in startups, as well as I think yesterday her comment on gender representation on this board. I mean, obviously we probably need to increase that, over time, because women are very critical, not just to the startup and innovation ecosystem, but also I think things like climate impact. The bulk of climate impacts tend to fall upon women, and they tend to bear the burden. So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity, and there are a lot of challenges.
Yes.
I would not agree that social metrics take over financial. At least in Sweden, we talk about impact investing. It's make good and make profit together. So
I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but within the financial management space, there's certain gradations of, you have purely financially oriented
Absolutely.
funds, you have purely impact, and then you have a wide cross-section of those in the middle. But when people say an impact investor, it means a very specific orientation. So I try to be very specific in definitions. Because there are a lot of funds that have strong impact missions, even though they're still largely financially driven, and it's important to kind of use the right labels. Otherwise, I think you get missed opportunities when you approach someone and say, I want to do an impact fund, and you get a lot of funds that are financial first. They have an impact philosophy, but they'll sit there and say, I'm not an impact.
I agree. There's a lot of greenwashing, and you have to be very strict. But in the strict impact investing, you combine financial returns with social and environmental returns. And do you have this kind of in what is called National Advisory Board for Impact Investing in Thailand? There's you might consider creating, because there's this global steering group, GSG, that was created in UK, that collects a lot of and tries to drive this kind of impact in investing. And Sweden, we initiated a national advisory board, the board of National Advisory Board for Impact Investing, trying to promote and develop impact investing in Sweden, and become part of this community of impact investors. And I agree completely with what you're saying, but and you have to move from this greenwashing, but you have to find things that make profit and make goods at the same time. I think we have to move into that, but it creates other kind of fund structures, other fund ways. So the traditional VC model is not really made for this.
Yes, Yes, I agree. You need both. You need impact has to make profit, otherwise it doesn't attract the money. So whatever people tell you, the reality is that's what attracts the money. And it's a specialist subject, so I'll actually say I'm a generalist. You actually need someone that really understands it because there is greenwashing. It's difficult to, you can look at a company, what do they use? So it's not just the company and what they say they do, but what products are being used behind. So it's actually a very, very specialist subject, and it's the future for sure. So massive opportunity to be an early leader. Ukraine situation has caused a move away, a focus away. That will come back, and so there's an opportunity to be a leader by having the right person to be on board and lead the subject.
Just bringing in that's an interesting subject that we had on the Deep Tech conference as part of the European EU chairmanships. You know, there's a lot of this about security part, which has become so important due to the geopolitical situation in Europe, and it's interesting looking at NATO now. Previously, the defense was really driving innovation. Much of the US, the Silicon Valley, is driven by defense money. Now the defense seems to be looking for entrepreneurship and innovation. It's the opposite kind of situation. And NATO is introducing a huge venture fund to really bring private kind of innovations into the military space, a completely different approach than previous, which is quite interesting. I don't know how this influences NIA, but an interesting observation.
So, thank you very much for your input. So we are running a little bit behind schedule, so we have a 10-minute breaks, and then we come back again to meet and discuss with the board. Okay? Have a coffee for 10 minutes. So we are back after our break. First of all, I would like to introduce you officially again. Professor Soranet Suritam, he is our chairman of the board of National NIA. Okay, and then we have Dr. Gur, Professor Gur Wongbunsin, he is also our advisor to the board. Okay, and we have Ms. Dong Chai. She used to be a former Secretary General of Board of Investment of Thailand. Okay, advisor. And here we have Dr. Rene from Sweden, คุณ Paul นะครับ oh, sorry, Dr. Sorry, Dr. Chair from Sweden, คุณ Paul, and Mr. Sim from Estonia, and Ms. Ayumi from OECD, and Dr. Rene, of course, from Germany. And Dr. Arm from Chulalongkorn University. Okay, and actually we have one, Mr. Lee Chu Chiet from Singapore. He has COVID, so he couldn't fly here, so he has to be online. So sorry about that, but he still participate. Even he had just had it for second day, right, Mr. Lee? He said, okay. Now I would like to have Dr. Rene, okay, to do all the what we have done, okay, during the past 2 days, to give the board and the advisor all the picture, okay, what we have done, and give a recommendation to NIA, okay, at our advisory board. Thank you, Dr. Rene.
Right, so it's a great pleasure to have this opportunity to present what we have been doing in 2 days in 10 minutes. I'll do my best to be true to our work. I think what stands out is that we're going to talk in particularly about what our recommendations are from our perspective, and I'd like to summarize them on 4 broad topics. The first topic was around entrepreneurship culture, entrepreneurship initiative, entrepreneurship thinking. There was a strong theme yesterday, and the feeling is that entrepreneurship should be seen not just as something done by small startup companies, but something which happens on a national economy plane, which includes large companies, which includes SMEs, and that Thailand may have a big of a liability, which on the other hand is a strength, but having very big and powerful companies, which also drive investment in R&D in Thailand, that can become a liability. But it can be a huge strength if they become a driver in this entrepreneurial activities and in driving new areas in economic activity. So I think this is something which also resonates with a lot of training which is already being done by the NIA, which is very powerful in that respect, that we can broaden the number of people who have these skills, this interest, etc. So I think that was the first big takeaway from yesterday, which still resonated today. The second is around investment, what money can flow into investing into the new, into innovation. Ms. Ayumi had some concrete suggestions also today. The OECD has in particularly looked at the framework on how venture capital investment is happening in markets, and in particularly in developing middle-income countries, potentially as opposed, or it flows in different ways than it is happening in, let's say, Israel and the US. So this is something which the OECD can bring to the table and actually work with this framework and the NIA to inform how venture capital investment can be nurtured. Also something which Mr. Paul, of course, has contributed in the board for some years, sharing a lot of information there. The other subtopic of this main topic in investment was also another interesting point from Ms. Huimi about impact investment. We saw in the assessment from the OECD that the region in the world where impact investment is expected to grow fastest is Southeast Asia, starting from a low point though. So it's not big yet, but it's something which will in the future play an important role in Southeast Asia, and therefore also something which the NIA will want to have a stance on, potentially also as Dr. Kjell was talking about, helping to inform what impact investment is, what rules might govern it, what frameworks might nurture it, and also how to define it. That was also a little point of discussion among ourselves. So this is what I think in terms of investing into entrepreneurial activities is important to notice. What we have not discussed so much, but what needs to be taken then also into consideration here is what are the roles from corporate venture capital investment, what's the role of big companies. The third big headline for me was around talent. There's multiple of the board members who commented on talent acquisition. We had the angle of Dr. Am on innovation diplomacy, the role of working with other countries, obviously, but also to attract talent from other countries, which may become available to drive innovation in Thailand. People who are from China, Taiwan, from other Southeast Asian countries, which are educated, maybe in the US, maybe elsewhere, which look for a place to settle and a place to be innovative and a place to be entrepreneurs. And that place can, for many good reasons, be Thailand, for the reasons that it's a vibrant innovation ecosystem, great place to live, well connected. All these advantages which Thailand has can be communicated towards these target groups of talents, which could then help to build innovation here. Checking my notes, I think Nigel Green from our board, who is on the phone, no doubt, doing some interesting deals, has also contributed in saying, well, first of all, this academy from the NIA is already a great tool to develop talent. It can potentially be expanded towards becoming a tool to bring foreign talents also into the ecosystem, so educate them, potentially also in other languages, also to make sure that talents can in this way be welcomed and become productive fast in Thailand. He was also talking about the importance of nurturing talent and motivating talent through success stories. So that's something which in many entrepreneurial ecosystems is driving a lot of the energy, that one sees what are the role models to follow. That's something which the NIA could potentially also develop. So identifying success stories, describing them, spreading the word, and with that attracting additional talent. And one of the most important points from Nigel, which he likes to bring up, is that it's also all about driving the process of implementing growth in companies, building companies, and so on. So building these good practices and building them through education, but also through coaching, helping entrepreneurs to actually grow fast. From Mr. Sim, I would be adding maybe the point also here under this big headline of talent, and potentially then also leading towards the next topic, which will be the topic about growing and scaling successful areas. Mr. Sim, coming from Estonia, has already advocated today in the session quite successfully about the merits of being digital, the merits of also the e-residency program which Estonia has built. And that could be explored, whether that is not a good way of getting a foothold in the European market for Thai startups or for Thai innovators, which could leverage on this e-residency scheme to become a company registered in the European Union, and with that having easy access to those markets. It's a very interesting initiative to look deeper into. So that's sort of the handover to my fourth and I guess last headline of recommendations. And this is about growing, scaling, and creating speed to expand innovation activities. There was a number of recommendations. One was from Dr. Kjell about potentially building a similar program like we have in Europe, had very good experience with. In Europe it's called the Euro Stars, so you already created a name, which is the Thai Stars. And the idea here is that governmental funding supports the transition from R&D towards a marketable product. It's a program which requires at least 2 partners, if I'm not mistaken, which none of them should be dominant, so it's not something which works very well with one big company and one very small innovator. It needs to be something where 2 companies or more create out of R&D marketable products. This is something which has seen a lot of success in bridging this difficult gap from research to innovation, and that can potentially inform also a similar scheme here. Another interesting idea more on the ecosystem level is that in Europe we've been having a program which is called Startup Genome, which allows us to assess in a systematic way an ecosystem, an innovation ecosystem, startup ecosystem. This is something which exists and which can also be used not just for a national startup ecosystem, but also for regional startup ecosystem, which was also a point which I think is already a focus point of NIA to say, well, we need to also to bring innovation to the regions. It cannot be just something for the 3-4 big hubs in Thailand, but it should be broadly spread. And then such a scheme can be used to actually assess it in a structured way and then also guide policy decisions there. And then we also talked at length about opportunities to leverage already strengths. We, for obvious reasons, have been actually multiple of us been attracted to the food sector, which is in a large transition globally because it's under a lot of strain. We now need to feed 8 billion people. These 8 billion people have also more and more sophisticated diets, so scarcity is certainly something we'll see more in the future. In Europe, we're maybe particularly biased because we see inflation on food prices on an annual average of over 10%, in some countries up to 14%, including the country I'm from. So we see a lot of strain in this sector, but there's also huge opportunities in this sector. And we see that the food and nutrition sector is merging with the health sector. So in Europe, we have, for instance, launched a program which we call Wellbeing and Nutrition, because today, roughly 50% in Europe, 50% of health spending is associated with nutrition, often bad nutrition or unhealthy nutrition. So there's a lot of money, so to speak, on the table for health care cost, which can actually be, if you look at this in a broader context, be shifted also to more healthier nutrition, something which also links then to new technology, which allows many more people on the planet to have a personalized diet, a more healthy diet, etc. So there's also technologies which enable that. So one suggestion here is to say we can leverage on a program which we have already in Europe around nutrition and well-being to bring Thai companies together with European companies, work on foresight in the sector, but work also then on innovation challenges in this sector to open up new markets, particularly markets which are at this intersection of the nutrition or the classical agro-food industry with the health industry. And we had also a deep dive into Swedish food tech activities, which is another market which is in Europe very well developed in terms of food. So there's plenty also of personal networks which we could bring into this. And we were also informed about the nice new addition to the Space F program with the Korean, I think it's one of the biggest food companies in the world, Lotte company or corporation from Korea, which is of course a wonderful thing to have such a powerful partner in the national program. But that could be also just one of the first of international big companies who join national activities here in Thailand. So I don't know if you're in within the 10 minutes, but I tried to summarize what you did in this, but would also be inviting then, of course, if I forgot anything, my colleagues to add to this, but I hope I paid justice.
You want to add anything, Dr. Joe? Please.
Say that we also discussed that food and nutrition is not only on humans but animals also. It's a big market, both in agriculture but also pets. You know, pets. It's a very stable markets where Westerners put a lot of money.
Thank you, Dr. Rene, for your conclusion on behalf of our IAB members from the work that we have done during the past 2 days. Now, it's an open discussion that among the members that you want to add anything more for the board and our advisor to, to know more. Please, or our advisor or the board want to have any question with the members, please feel free. It's an open discussion now. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Jai.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the summary. I do have a couple of questions. You talk about talent attraction. Actually, it's a thing that many governments around the world are trying to do, including Thailand. I can say that because I used to head an agency which is responsible for attracting talents by providing a special kind of visa. But we found that in Thailand, actually, there is more to that. Because I think in Europe, you have a more relaxed regulations in terms of investment from overseas. Like you have less restrictions on foreign equity. While in Thailand, even foreigners who receive special visa like smart visa or long-term resident visa, if they would like to set up a company in Thailand, they may face some challenges, except if they come to the BY and ask for promotion from us. So I think attracting, it's not just about attracting talents, but it's about creating the whole ecosystem for talents to grow, to prosper from just being talents to being a talented company, which would bring a lot more economic value to the country. So that's a point, because if you look around, I mean, like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, we are now offering similar schemes, because we always look at what our neighboring countries are doing and try to offer something that is more what they are offering. And you can see that Singapore has managed to attract a lot of startups, a lot of companies. I think my personal view, because they have a lot more open investment regime, in a sense that foreigners perhaps, because in Thailand, if you're in services, you still need to get Thai majority, except you get approval from an agency like the BOI. And another thing, I think it is very interesting, you talk about food and nutrition, which have a lot to do with health. Thailand is a medical hub, or we say that we are a medical hub, and we try to be a regional medical hub, which actually, given the fact that each year before COVID, we treated at least 2 million foreign patients in Thailand. So it's a huge market, and as you can see from the exhibitions, today, a lot of food and nutrition companies. And I also couldn't agree more with the comment later on about the animal feed or the pet food, which is a growing market. And Thailand is already, I think if I'm not mistaken, number 7 in the world in terms of pet food exporter. I can say that because when I was still working with the board investment, we provide incentives to a lot of pet food manufacturers. But I think with the nutrition concept, that would be the growth sector for the pet food industry. And actually, multinational companies, some of them like Cargill, Mars, they have chosen to set up an R&D center in Thailand. But mostly for sensory, set up sensory units. I like to see them set up kind of a nutrition R&D center in Thailand. Mars has invested in a nutrition R&D center in Thailand a few years ago. I think that is another very promising sector. But again, I think we need to look at the whole ecosystem in order to drive something. Rather than just talking about the, when talents are key drivers. And if you go to places like, let's say, Chiang Mai, Phuket, you see a lot of foreign, say, nomads, tech nomads. But some of them may find it difficult to set up a company, even if they manage to get their research or their work done. But if they want to scale up, that could face another challenge, except they find a Thai partner. So that's briefly my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chai. Our chairman want to give comments once he heard about genome. Okay, so he want to share
the idea.
Share the
with
idea.
You. Thank you very much for your summary, and thank you very much for your work hard. Maybe yesterday and today, and hope you can have a chance to explore Bangkok, because now, today and tomorrow, Bangkok is, I think it's beautiful. The weather is okay, beautiful, not too much rain and not too hot. Yeah, I would like to share some idea about the genome that you mentioned about that. I am one of the founder of the project Genomic Thailand. I don't know you heard this project or not. Genomic Thailand is about the consortium with many people, Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Science and Technology, EEC part, and private hospital work together, and we want to have a whole genome sequencing for 50,000 people of Thailand. And now the project is working about maybe 2 or 3 years. And I think we work with the big company in China. It's BGI. I think you know that. And one of this arm, the private hospital, connect with the Illumina in United States, from United States. The project Genomic Thailand work well, and we want to have a whole genome sequencing for 50,000 people of Thailand. And now the project is working about maybe 2 or 3 years. And I think we work with the big company in China. It's BGI. I think you know that. And one of this arm, the private hospital, connect with the Illumina in United States, from United States. The project I think now the big private hospital like the Bamrungrad or Bangkok Hospital or other hospital have a clinic of the genome clinic. They can do the whole genome sequencing and consult the doctor and treat or the diagnosis of the patient, use the information from whole genome sequencing. But I heard you mention about the genome, startup genome. It might be okay because we lack of, we want the doctor or the personnel that can have a counseling of the problem of the genome. I think your idea is really good, and I will take the comment that to my team in project of Genomic Thailand to accelerate startup more and more. Okay, thank you very much.
Dr.
Just wanted to quickly clarify this what was the comment from Kjell is actually something else. It's about mapping different startup ecosystems. So it's a kind of assessment tool. Maybe you want to clarify also what this is about.
Yeah, the name Startup Genome comes from understanding what makes a startup prosper and the ecosystem to support it well. So you try to understand the success factors in developing the ecosystem. So because in our case, what we mean by an ecosystem is that you put a certain kind of, it's an ecological kind of metaphor. So where you take an organism or organization type like a startup and look at its life conditions and its habitation. So how can you improve its life condition and its habitation so it prospers well? So you have like a success factor model, and one of the basic thing is that at an ecosystem, it's not, you cannot have a hammer and make everything a nail. You have to understand the maturity of it. So different regions in different maturities require different policy interventions. Because it's so easy to do this one-size-fits-all kind of intervention nationally. But you have to understand what kind of maturity the region has. And then this model gives you a guidance on how you move from one maturity to another state of maturity, and what kind of policy actions you have to take in order to develop that ecosystem, that regional ecosystem. So that's the strength of it, and it's a quantitative and qualitative assessment of the ecosystem. It's entrepreneurial activity, for example. It looks at what kind of support can you give companies in different phases, because if you are in a problem solution fit phase, you need different ways of support, or if you are in a product market or in a scaling phase. So you also understand the life conditions from a is it a child or is it some more mature kind of organization? And this model really helps you in designing policy actions based on both the startup maturity but also the ecosystem maturity. So it's like unleashing the genome of startup ecosystems.
Thank you very much for that you elaborate on your idea. Mr. Sim, do you want to add anything?
No, perhaps just to still add like a very generic comment in a way. I think, especially because most of us are still new here, it's been really valuable, not just to have an official meeting, but really have the sort of 2 days in terms of going deeper into what NIA is about, what it does, what's really the situation in Thailand. So I think what you have heard here today are just, let's say, the first sort of knee-jerk reaction ideas. And there's more to come in the next months and well, sometimes years of being in the board. Thank you.
Ayumi?
Thank you very much. This was the first time for me to join in person the annual IAB meeting, and with the Secretariat efforts, I could learn a lot about NIA itself and the ecosystem, startup ecosystem of Thailand. And so I'm trying to share the perspective from multilateral organization and also bilateral partnership and the cross-border importance of cross-border partnership and cooperation. And I shared today with the in the startup Southeast Asia Startup Assembly that nowadays, the international communities are talking a lot about SDGs. In addition to ESG, but also climate. But SDGs have, until 2030. So we have a clear target up to 2030, and we found that there is a financial gap, like $2.6 trillion to achieve SDGs. So a lot of international community like World Bank, ADB, or bilateral donors like Japan, in Japan's case, Japan International Cooperation Agency, where I used to belong. And so they are more and more looking to supporting startups which into the social impact, not only financial impact, but social impact. So impact investment is now attracting a lot of efforts from those donors. So I wanted to follow up with the NIAs if Thailand can set up mutual learning like platform among Southeast Asia regions on during the between entrepreneurs or venture capital associations or all the stakeholders. And I hope that Japan can also be the member to support that initiative. And also, I will try to talk with my team in OECD if OECD can help establishing those mutual learning platforms. So thank you very much, and I would love to continue discussing with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yue. Dr. Aram, do you want to add anything?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I have learned a lot for the past 2 days, especially the very impressive works of the NIA in creating the innovation ecosystem in Thailand. And I totally agree with Advisor Duangchai that it's about the ecosystem, right? Including when we talk about attracting talent, we have to look at the whole picture because it's not just providing an incentive, a visa and environment, but also there's a whole host of laws that have to be reformed in order for them to think that Thailand is really a platform for building an innovation. But I think that when we discuss attracting talent, it's because we look at the bigger picture of the shifting geopolitical landscape. And with the US and China tension, with the tension in Taiwan, with the situation with Chinese students or Asian students in the US, there's a lot of opportunities, even more than in the past, for talent to look at Thailand, Southeast Asia, right? But not just attracting outside talent, but I think from within, we have to have broader perspective. A lot of the projects in the exhibition in today's presentation focus a lot on the domestic market. But I think we need to look broader, right, to the mainland Southeast Asia region, to Southeast Asia, or even to the Asian region. So I think it from both perspectives, attracting outside talents, but also how to integrate them to domestic talent, and then to look at the broader market of the region.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, you want to add anything? Please. Mr. Paul, please.
Thank you. I mean, I guess this is probably going to be my last official opportunity to speak as an outgoing member of this advisory board. But I will say that, probably in the decade-long career that I've been a venture capitalist, I've been in the very fortunate position to get the opportunity to study approximately 40 plus ecosystems in 30 countries around the world at a very detailed level. And I think the one thing, my one takeaway from that experience is that every ecosystem is incredibly unique. I think for a large part of the early life of the Thai ecosystem, we've always tried to emulate, places like Silicon Valley and Singapore, without really understanding the unique factors that drove the success of those ecosystems and the unique factors in Thailand that may or may not present challenges in copying those ecosystems. I think every ecosystem is very unique. I think, Dr. Kell made the point that, ecosystem mapping is very important because the factors that drive the success of one ecosystem may not necessarily apply to another ecosystem. And so, that has greatly informed, my approach to both my job as an investor, as a global investor, but also spending a lot of time here in Thailand being an ecosystem builder. And so, I think what's been quite remarkable in my interaction with the NIA over the years, even preceding my time on the International Advisory Board, was the extent that the NIA and Dr. Panat and his team have really tried to build as many different connections to different ecosystems around the world so that we can exchange learnings, we can learn from each other, and kind of get the best takeaways from that. And so if I look at the composition of the IAB now versus what it was 3.5, 4 years ago when I came on board, we went from a predominantly, still largely Thai, even if it was International Advisory Board, I think half of our members were Thai. I think now, I think once I leave, it's probably Dr. Arm. And we're talking, I guess it's probably about a half a dozen or more countries represented, which is quite amazing. So, I guess as I wrap up my time here, I think, what I'd love to see as a wish list over the next few years is to see an increased diversification of this advisory board and these connections. I mean, admittedly, I think most of the members on our IAB now come from, very developed, economies and ecosystems, it's a great learning template for us. But at the same time, if I think about where Thailand is demographically, our ecosystems are very similar to what I've seen in places like Latin America and Africa, and it would be amazing if we could, if this board continues to bring in folks from Sweden, Estonia, and Germany, and London, and Japan, and then add people from other ecosystems that are yet to be represented here. I think that's where I would love to see, this board go. But it's been an amazing experience, and just to see how the NIA has flourished over the last few years is nothing short of remarkable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are missing Mr. Nigel Green because we have the engagement. We have an appointment and have to leave first. Okay, yes, please, Dr. Jukem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would completely agree. And something that I would like to bring in that we are pursuing right now in Sweden is that, at least in, I don't know how it is exactly here, but it's so easy to get the fragmented policy system and a fragmented kind of environment or actors, so that you get somebody is working with venture capital, somebody is with talent, and most of these things are systemic. You have to look them together from the early start to the growth and exit or whatever. Because if the system is not working together, the ecosystem will not work well in the long term. So from both a policy point of view and from other, you have to look at that. And one thing that we are now pursuing is that, based on international experiences also, that coordinated ecosystem development is much more effective than non-coordinated. It seems like a true or nothing to really discuss, but it's really difficult. In Sweden, for example, there's regional actors, there's national actors, there's private actors. They are not very well coordinated. And ecosystem development, in my view, requires a new type of intermediary. A new type of intermediary that really does this coordination and helps different policymakers or others to coordinate ecosystem development. So it's not the individual incubator or individual science park or individual private that really requires money from government or whatever to do. It has to be in some way approved in a larger context, in a systemic context. We got an example from Ontario where they have done this, and the team that coordinated was from the beginning a company that was marketing the regions. So it was a neutral kind of, because you have to have a neutral position in the ecosystem, and they turned into this kind of keystone organization that does the coordination. And for example, when a science park or somebody was asking national money, the minister or those who were responsible, they went down to the keystone organization and said, "Was this blessed by the region?" If it was not, it was rejected, regardless how good the proposal was. So it really requires that regional and national actors together looks at development from a national and regional point of view. And we are right now trying, it's really an experimental learning process to how to really run coordinated ecosystem. And we have a pilot of 4 regions that we are now applying these ideas on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Wait a minute. Dr. Rand, do you have anything more?
I think I already talked enough, but I have to say that I was also very inspired by understanding that there's, in addition to this food sector, also a lot of lead market characteristics in the health sector, which I think is very motivating to say, well, there's something here where you can then also punch globally above your weight and accelerate development of that sector further. So that's something which I also take home from this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's about time that we have to have a closing already, but before that, we would like to have our chairman to give the souvenir to all the IAB members. Okay, and then we'll have a group picture later. Yeah, group. Oh. Thank you very much for your time. Even you're sick, but you still participate in our meeting today. So wishing that you recover soon, strong. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Thank you. Now, I would like all the IAB members to stand in front of the stage to have a group photo, and our advisor as well, and the board member.